The eNASCAR Pro Invitational iRacing Series is officially in the books after 6 very fun weekends of virtual racing. We have a lot to talk about after today's chaotic race at the Monster Mile. How's it going, y'all? My name is Eric and welcome to Out of the Groove. Well, the Pro Invitational is officially complete and today William Byron wrapped it up with his third win in the series. He won half the races of this series, but the Cup Series is not done with iRacing just yet. Next week, they will be racing at North Wilkesboro Speedway. That's right, bringing in a classic into the virtual world, back onto the national scene. Rumors were flying a few days ago, but then Fox confirmed it during the broadcast today that North Wilkesboro will be featured next weekend, Saturday afternoon on Fox and FS1. It's not technically a Pro Invitational race, and we might see a few familiar faces. Jeff Gordon hinted during the broadcast that he might try his hand at iRacing again and compete in that event. It'll be interesting to see what other drivers, if any, choose to participate in that feature. But really cool to see North Wilkesboro Speedway returning to the national scene. It's really a perfect blend of new school and old school. You have the old school iconic short track that is North Wilkesboro Speedway being brought into the new school virtual sim racing world. It's a perfect blend of everything we love, and it's going to be a lot of fun to watch on Saturday. But that's not what I'm here to talk about today. Today, I'm here to talk primarily about Dover, which I just got done watching. It was something. It was different. Definitely had a different tone than probably all the other Pro Invitational races have had to this point. And there's one key reason why that is. Clint Bowyer did not race in today's race. He was not there at all. He was not even on the broadcast. And that notably shifted the entire mood, the entire tone of the event. I've said since the very beginning that I think the most important part of these iRacing broadcasts is the broadcast itself, is the way the racing is presented to the folks watching at home on their couches. Since it's not real cars on the real racetrack and the racing is similar but not entirely 100% realistic, the way Mike Joy, Jeff Gordon, Fox, Larry McReynolds, Clint Bowyer, whoever, brings the races into people's homes was going to be key. That was really going to determine whether this was a success and whether this was entertaining, whether the ratings continue to go up for this. And up to this point, Fox has nailed it. Mike Joy and Jeff Gordon have been great. Clint Bowyer has been hilarious. Larry McReynolds has been on his game, and he actually was pretty funny today. Michael Waltrip's had some small appearances here and there, and I think in small doses, Michael Waltrip is very entertaining. So the Fox broadcasts up to this point have absolutely killed it. Knocked it out of the park. They've been the best part of this entire Pro Invitational. The racing's been great, but I'll be honest, the Fox broadcast and the way they've presented the racing to the fans has been the most engaging and entertaining part of the entire series. And today, with Clint Bowyer taking the day off, Regan Smith filled in, and Regan Smith was fine. I like Regan Smith. He wasn't bad or anything. He had some interesting, some funny banter, some good commentary here and there, but he's not Clint Bowyer. They tried to shoehorn Clint Bowyer into the broadcast with the lame Bush beer gag. Oh, Clint Bowyer's been racing drunk. It kind of a stupid gag, in my opinion. But not having Clint Bowyer's lively energy made this kind of feel like a stale and drier broadcast than the others. A lot of the drivers provide their own funny commentary on social media. That's what I followed along with the most. I thought it was really hilarious to see Alex Bowman continue to tie in his dog. Timmy Hill tie his cat in to the race, blaming his cat for certain incidents. I like Corey LaJoy got caught up in 2 wrecks really early on. On Twitter, he was threatening to rage quit. He ended up getting back on the lead lap and actually broke into the top 10 late in this race. So it was kind of cool to see that journey and his range of emotions throughout the event. Jimmy Johnson, of course, streaming. Many drivers streaming on Twitch. We saw retaliations in this race, so it was pretty interesting. Beyond the broadcast, but the broadcast itself was a little bit drier than past ones. But the North Wilkesboro announcement, and of course this whole broadcast was kind of almost felt like a lame duck broadcast because now it's public knowledge that NASCAR is going to return May 17th. Cup Series is back at Darlington in just a couple short weeks. So with everyone kind of having that on the back of their mind, I think a lot of people's attention is already kind of shifted towards the future. Nobody was paying quite as close of attention to this race here today. At least that's the impression I got just being on social media, watching the race, of course, at home. It was a different vibe than I think the other 5 races have been. And coming off a thriller that Talladega was a week ago, which had great racing, extremely realistic pack racing, not a whole lot of wrecks. It was really good racing and an outstanding finish last week. This weekend's race, a bit drier. Still had a great finish. I'll talk about it here in just a moment, but William Byron, like I said at the beginning, won 3 of these 6 races. We expect it. We expect that William Byron, of course, his career started on a computer. iRacing is largely responsible for the reason he has a Hendrick Motorsports Cup Series ride today, or at least rose to that status as quickly as he did because of his prowess on iRacing. So not surprising to see him win. Still had an enjoyable finish. I thought tire strategy at the end came into play and was really engaging. The fact that Timmy Hill took 2 tires, Byron took 4, and it almost paid out for Timmy Hill, but he lost the lead with just a few short laps to go. Good clean racing up front. It was still a good race. I'm not going to bash the race. In fact, the race was comparable to pretty much every other race. The only bad race in this entire Pro Invitational was Bristol, because it was too many wrecks and the drivers couldn't keep their cars to themselves. Every other race in this Pro Invitational has been good, if not great. I thought today's race was on the good side of things. It was in the good category. The broadcast just went from being phenomenal to being pretty good. So that was my big takeaway from today's race. Just in a nutshell, overarching, my initial reaction to this broadcast was racing was solid, not great, not amazing, but pretty good. Finish was good and clean, like the racing, like William Byron and Timmy Hill battling for much of this race. Broadcast was still good, still very professional, still offered some humorous moments, still offered some cool personal looks at a lot of the drivers, but it was a little more stale than every other broadcast. And largely, I think that's just Clint Bowyer. That's the Clint Bowyer effect, man. He's been the MVP of these broadcasts. He has been the personality. One of the big complaints with Fox, their real life broadcasts over the last couple of years, is that they have become a bit too mellow. A lot of people compare watching a race on Fox to just kind of sitting back on your couch, on a Sunday afternoon drinking beer on your back porch. Don't know why you'd be sitting on a couch on your back porch. Some people have couches, I guess, on their back porch. My point is, a Fox Sports broadcast of a real life NASCAR Cup race the last couple of years has felt more like a lazy Sunday afternoon and less, of an edge of your seat sporting event. And with Clint Bowyer being injected into these Pro Invitational broadcasts, he brought the liveliness, he brought the energy, he brought the comedy to the broadcast, to the show. And with him not there today, it once again fell back into that lazy Sunday afternoon. I feel like I was never really on the edge of my seat during today's race. Maybe that's just because the racing itself was never super intense, but I think large parts of that are due to the broadcast as well. It sounds like I'm completely destroying them or tearing them apart. I don't mean it to sound that way at all. I still think the broadcast was pretty good today. Mike Joy and Jeff Gordon were both very solid, but I just thought today's race noticeably less engaging compared to the last few Pro Invitational races. But there you go. There's just my vague critique on that. As far as the race itself, I mean, of course, with the fixed setups and the way this the racing works in iRacing, there's a one groove track right around the bottom for the most part. You could kind of drift up a lane or two and maybe get a run on somebody. I was actually really impressed. I thought we'd see more wrecks in this race because Dover in real life can be pretty treacherous. It's banked all the way around, even on the straightaways. Any little slight tap, it's so fast. Any slight tap of any sort of kind could spark a huge multi-car accident. We saw a few pretty big pileups in this race, but we definitely saw less than I expected. Dover, in a lot of ways, is just a little bit bigger Bristol, and Bristol was an absolute mess a few weeks back, so I worried that today's race at Dover could be a little messy as well. And it never really was. The wrecks never really got in the way of enjoying the race. It still, pacing-wise, felt like a normal NASCAR race for the most part. But Dover itself, kind of a one-groove track, so a lot of guys were kind of waiting for people to make mistakes to drive underneath them, but you could pass. It was a fun race to watch, actually. I like the best drivers, and they actually pointed this out during the broadcast late in the race, but the top 3 on the second-to-last green flag run were the 3 guys who'd won almost all the Pro Invitational races up to this point. So the cream rose to the top without a doubt, so that was enjoyable to see. You always want to see the best drivers and teams rise to the top and get rewarded. You don't want just to see, the best driver each week get taken out by something that wasn't in their control. That would get frustrating after a while. You want to see the best drivers rewarded for their skills and for their talent, and you got that today with Timmy Hill and William Byron battling it out down the stretch. They have probably been the 2 most consistently good drivers in this entire Pro Invitational, so it makes sense that they were the ones dueling at the very end. So that was all very enjoyable. We even saw some retaliation. John Nemechek, they didn't really have a great replay on the broadcast, but it sounds like he might have gotten spun out by Denny Hamlin late in this race. He came back on the track and waited for Hamlin to come by when Hamlin was running in the top 5. Nemechek took Hamlin out and then immediately signed off the server, it looked like. Some people caught Nemechek's audio on his stream that he was intentionally going to take Denny Hamlin out and then intentionally signed off. So that was confirmed. That's exactly what happened. So you got some retaliation. It was a kind of a pro-gamer rage moment there. He knew exactly what to do. Take him out, sign out of the thing so you don't have to hear anything about it. So you had some retaliation, you had some tempers, a few other notable things in today's race. I thought it was really cool that Regan Smith was back running a Furniture Row paint scheme. The 78 Denver Mattress Furniture Row racing car, which Regan Smith, of course, won a real-life Cup Series race back in 2011. That was Furniture Row Racing's first win, and in many ways, that was kind of the start of Furniture Row Racing's rise into becoming a championship team in 2017. So it was really cool to see Regan Smith, kind of unprovoked, unprompted, run a number 78 furniture road car on track. He never really cracked the top 30, so we didn't see a whole lot of it, but it was still pretty cool to see, especially on the broadcast. I'll put this race on the groovy gauge really quick. It's somewhere in between these last few races. It's not as bad as Bristol was for sure, but the broadcast definitely left a little bit to be desired. It didn't quite hold up compared to the recent Pro Invitational races. I'm going to give today's race at Dover a 75% because the racing still very realistic and still very competitive and pretty clean for the most part. A lot of great racing out there, so it's not bad at all in that department. It's really the broadcast is the only thing that kind of knocked maybe a few points off for me, but I'll keep it at 75%. This race just felt the least exciting of the six. It felt the most just kind of passive, you know, and that's fine. I did feel like compared to the recent races, this one, I don't know, it didn't really hit me as hard, didn't have me out of my seat as much as some of the other ones did. You know, some of the other ones I was legit laughing in my seat. This one never really brought me to that point. So still a great race, good event overall, and I think the Pro Invitational has been a huge success, but today's race, I'll give it a 75. Of course, as always, let me know what you thought of today's race. Give me your type of scores down in the description below or in the comment section below. I look forward to reading all of those. So North Wilkesboro is next weekend. It's next Saturday, and of course then the weekend after, the Cup Series, fingers crossed, we'll be returning to the real racetrack, so that'll be very exciting. I'm really interested to hear, to see what other drivers perhaps sign on to do the North Wilkesboro race. Dale Jr., of course, will do it. Jeff Gordon, it sounds like, will likely do it. You can't tease a possible return to iRacing on a major broadcast and then not do it. So I think Jeff Gordon is going to race next weekend. He kind of has to. He forced his hand. Bobby Labonte will probably race, and Labonte's raced at the real North Wilkesboro Speedway before, so like in the Cup Series. So that'll be pretty neat to see, of course. It'd be cool to see some of the other maybe retired drivers, some who maybe have experience at North Wilkesboro in their past careers. It'd be cool to see maybe a few of them hop on the sim rig and maybe make some laps. I know it's not super likely, but it would be pretty neat to see. So I encourage you guys, reach out to your favorite drivers, tag them on Twitter, tell them who you want to see at North Wilkesboro this weekend in the virtual iRacing race, because I think it'd be really cool to see a few new faces in that event for sure. That's what has me very excited. Honestly, it's really cool that iRacing is able to preserve these iconic historic racetracks, yeah, albeit in the virtual space, but they do such a good job of making their simulations as realistic as possible. And obviously, you know, last year they went to the real North Wilkesboro Speedway and scanned the real track, and that track surface obviously would need to be repaired quite a bit if they were to ever hold a real cup race there anytime soon, but they were able to do an incredible job, I'm sure, replicating it into these simulations. So really cool that iRacing is a tool that exists in this way and is capable of such a thing. I think it could be really cool in the future to see other historic racetracks brought into the service, brought into that platform, and maybe like a legend, not a Legends car series, but like a NASCAR track Legends series. I don't know, you know, where we race tracks that have since been retired from the NASCAR Cup Series schedule. I think that would be a neat idea to explore. I honestly wish with this Pro Invitational they'd done that a little bit more, tried to race at some other tracks that NASCAR doesn't actually race at, just to mix things up a little bit, because we've seen Texas, we've seen Bristol, we've seen Homestead, Miami. It would have been cool to try out a couple other kind of fantasy tracks, so to speak, but either way, really cool that they're doing North Wilkesboro this coming week. I'm looking forward to it. I'm sure many of you all are as well. But that's really all I have to say about today's race at Dover. Really, not a whole lot that stood out to me overall. I think when it's all said and done, the Pro Invitational Series was a huge success. I mean, what was it? Adam Stern, Sports Business Journal, put out that tweet, reported a week or two ago that over 1 million fans, new fans who had not watched any NASCAR, any real NASCAR this year, had tuned into some of the Pro Invitational races. So that's exposing motorsports, exposing stock car racing to more fans, new fans, and what made this most exciting is this was a way for NASCAR to appear cutting edge and innovative when I think traditionally NASCAR has not been thought of as either of those things. So this was a great way for NASCAR to kind of push back against some of the negative stigma, stereotypes around its sport in that department. Obviously some of the drivers did the exact opposite, but regarding iRacing itself and everyone who worked on the Pro Invitational iRacing series, I think they deserve a round of applause for coming up with something as quickly as they did, and applaud all the drivers who participated. I mean, a lot of them, even Corey LaJoie, big naysayer, he got in and raced the last 2 weeks. Some drivers like Harvick or Almirola didn't race every race, but they came around on it. I mean, it was really great to see so many drivers, many of whom had little to no iRacing experience, buy in, invest time, energy, money, all that stuff into competing in this thing, and it was really great. Jimmy Johnson, Kyle Busch, credit to Kyle Busch, he has improved a crazy amount since the start of this thing. I think Brad Keselowski has also improved quite a bit. I mean, even Jimmy Johnson. Remember, first run of the race at Homestead Miami Speedway when they first started this thing a few weeks back, he was the butt of everyone's joke. Today, he didn't run top 5 for very long, but he was at least in the top 5. He wasn't causing every wreck. He was competitive at times in today's race. So credit to a lot of those drivers for buying in and putting forth the effort to put on a good show for the fans each of the last few weeks. This has been huge for NASCAR, huge for motorsports, because so many other motorsports are doing this as well. And it's really raised my respect for a lot of people in and around NASCAR, a lot of drivers especially. It's really been fun. Really been fun to watch. So when it's all said and done, the Pro Invitational will be regarded as a huge success. I'm sure there are a lot of teams that love that this was able to be put on, because a lot of the teams were able to kind of maintain relationships with their sponsors as a result. So I think this was overall a great, potentially business-saving move for a lot of race teams. And so I think when it's all said and done, this will be looked at as a great success. So I enjoyed it. But let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Did you enjoy today's race at Dover? If you enjoyed the Pro Invitational Series, are you excited for North Wilkesboro next weekend? And of course, I'm sure everyone's excited to get real race cars back on the track in just a couple short weeks. But let me know what you think down in the comments. Thank you everyone for watching. Follow me on Twitter, follow me on Instagram. We're closing in on 10,000 followers on both accounts. We're like 9,400 on Twitter, like 9,006 or 700 on Instagram. See which one of those gets to 10,000 first. Go follow me over there if you haven't already. Of course, subscribe if you are new. And a big thank you to my amazing Patreon supporters. We've added a few new names recently, which I greatly appreciate. If you missed it, I interviewed my racing hero in many ways, Matt Kenseth, on the show earlier this past week. That was a dream come true, and those types of opportunities would not be possible if not for the support I get from all of you over here on Patreon. And people who are subscribed on Patreon got a slight sneak preview of that interview, so if you want some extra behind-the-scenes content, consider becoming a Patreon supporter with that top link down in the description. I greatly, greatly appreciate it. Got some new videos in the works here for later this week, so I hope you all are looking forward to them, and I will see you again very, very soon. Hope you all have a great rest of your weekend. Stay safe out there, and I will see you again very, very soon. Bye-bye, everyone.